All my fellow credit and funding company. In today's video, we're going to talk about what's causing high costs. If you're already doing maybe 20 to 30, maybe even 50K per month, and you're trying to hit the six figure every single month, you should know all your KPIs and what's causing the KPI cost to go higher. So in this video, I want to kind of talk about the two main things that bring the cost to go double or even triple in some cases. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Javi. I specialize in helping the credit and funding space scale by implementing the exact marketing strategies that I use in my current company, and from helping over almost 285 clients at this point that are currently using our model to scale. So let's jump right into it. So what is the two things that is causing high, your KPIs to go pretty much higher costs, right? What is the main thing? So essentially, there's two things that's usually costing these things. It's either marketing or sales. There's really not the money driving force that bring the cost higher. It's literally predicated in these two things. So the easiest, just because I say easy doesn't mean it's simple, but one of the easiest that I would like to cover is sales. Now, what is the two things that is driving costs up? So the main thing, it should be your closing percentage. This is usually the main thing that you want to be at. Why? Well, the more leads you get and you're not closing, the lower the closing percentages, thus the higher the cost. Like the difference between somebody closing at a 15% or 20% closing rate to a 30 is almost double in the business, right? Instead of closing, let's say 5 clients, you're closing 10 clients. That is dramatically a huge difference in profits and cost per cost to acquire or anything on your high cost. So if your costs right now are going higher and higher and higher every single month, one of the first things I'll look is, what is my closing rate? Has my closing rate gone down? And if it's so, there's one of the first thing I will tackle in, besides the marketing stuff, we'll get into in a second. I will look at my closing rate and how is it going. If your closing rate is still, above 30%, then it's definitely the marketing, and then you have to work on a few things from there. But essentially, when the sales side of things, all you want to do is have a 30% closing rate and above. Now, increase your closing rate will also, of course, bring the lower the cost to acquire down. So how do we essentially bring the closing rate up? Well, there's multiple ways to do this. It doesn't take, this thing takes time. Becoming a better closer takes time. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's not really like one thing that I could show you in a video and then out of nowhere your closing rate triples or whatever, or even double. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of reps. It takes knowing the product very well and know your customer avatar. But try to have as many as the objection preventions before getting to the call. So all the frequently most asked questions, you should have that in your VSL or in your thank you page or in your retargeting campaigns for the people who maybe opted in into your landing page, so they can constantly stay top of mind and pretty much you're answering already all the questions they already should have, right? Now, use case study, testimonials, and guarantee to build trust. This is something that I see a lot of new entrepreneurs start their journey with no testimonials, with no case study. And I understand you're probably starting brand new, but even when I started brand new on the online space, I had already funded like more than 40 different people. So when I started building my landing pages, I already had, case studies and proof and results. So I highly recommend, if your landing page is bone dry right now, you need to start getting some testimonials and case studies. Go fund some people for free if you need to, get them results, and then put those results in your landing page or your thank you page. The more results you give, the more results you show to your prospects, the higher chances of them trusting you, which will translate to higher closing percentage. Okay. Another thing is watch your best calls and recognize patterns to make sure you repeat them to your next call. This is something that with our own clients, I'm like, okay, have you watched any of your previous calls you didn't close? They say no. I'm like, well, go watch them. Have you watched any calls of the people you have closed, and try to replicate that, and they have it. So there's something very, very important. If you're already closing deals, make sure it's almost like a sport. You gotta watch your gaming footage, as they say. So if you already have a lot of calls that you didn't close them, watch those calls. I highly recommend you. You're gonna see things that like, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should say this way, and you can recognize things that normally you wouldn't have. So highly recommend watching your own calls, close calls and not close calls. All right. Now, one of the things about closing rate that you should always keep in mind, which I see this time and time again with our clients, is that they're not cash collecting upfront enough. Ideally, what you want to do is at least cash collect 50% of the offer. One quick math that you could do is, what is your average cash on hand? So your AOV, it's AOV because average order value, pretty much average But I like to call it average cash collected. So ACC, but in the industry, it's called AOV, right? So what that is pretty much how much you're cash collecting upfront and what is your cost to acquire a client. And as long it makes sense, the math makes sense, then you're golden, right? So this is something to keep in mind. If you do have a good closing rate and your cash to acquire a client and your average cash on hand, just do the math, right? And again, it should be at least your average cash on hand should be at least 50% of the offer, right? So if your program price is 6,000, to work with you, and your cost to acquire a client is at least 1,500, you cash collecting $3,000, you at least profit 1,500 on that deal, and then next month you make another $3,000. Okay, so that's it for the sales side. There's not much you can do, like I said. There's a lot you could do, but the things to be aware of, I can't really coach you and train you on sales in one video. It's very difficult. So if you have a poor closing rate, please watch every single sales video that you can get on the internet. Buy every sales book as possible. If you have the money to invest in yourself, join a sales program. And it's one of the things that we also offer in my program, that when we sell you our entire business in a box, we do train you on sales, because we noticed after doing this for 2.5 years that the main determining factor between somebody getting results and not getting results is literally the ability to close a deal. So the higher closing rate you have, the more chances of succeeding. If you have no experience in high ticket sales, then hey man, it's going to be a bumpy ride. You have to get over the hump of, okay, I could close people, and I'm confident I could close people at least at a minimum 30%. Yes, you can pull it off like a 25 or 28, but ideally if you get 20 book calls a week with a 30% closing rate, and let's say a 20% no show, you will be hitting 6-figure months. So that's kind of like the math and where you should be aiming, at least 30% closing rate and 20 calls a week. Now let's go into the ads point of view. If your cost is going higher and higher, could it be the marketing? And it's usually, marketing or sales. It's either one of the two. So what could be one of the first things I look at if my cost is going higher and higher and higher? So the first thing I like to look is, has my CTR dropped? Right? I look at CTR and unique CTR too. Is unique CTR and CTR. The unique one kind of gives you, a dead on, because sometimes the CTR could be multiple people multiple, like the same person clicking the ad multiple times. So your CTR could be, let's say, like a 2% or something like that. Then you go to unique CTR and it's like a 0.9%. So you want to keep this in mind. I like to be at least 1% and above. It doesn't matter if it's unique or not unique. At least my CTR percentage, I want it to be 1% above. So when you're looking at your ads, look at the CTR and be like, has it dropped from like previous months or previous week? And is it stay at this, low percentages? If it is, then you need to either refresh the ads or, that's the best thing to do. You got to refresh the ads because the CTR is going down every week. So that means the cost is going to go higher. Remember, the CTR is kind of like the first thing of the marketing that people see. So after that, it kind of goes down, and different KPIs. But if the first KPI is very, very low, this would translate to all the costs of every other KPI to double or even triple in some cases, okay? So with the CTR is literally write a strong and direct hook that calls you ideal avatar. This means be very, very direct on who you're talking to. I was actually having a talk with a prospect earlier this week, and he was asking me, how do I work with people who are more established? Like they're already making a lot more money in business. And I'm like, you just got to call them out even better. Like whatever your requirements are is to work with you, you got to call it out on the ad. Now, this will increase cost per result, or cost per book call, because you're narrowing down the people you're working with. But if it costs you more, if it costs you more every lead or every book call to get your ideal avatar to talk to you, that doesn't really matter, right? As long as you actually close them and you're within KPIs, doesn't matter if your cost per message is $30 or your cost per book call is like $500, as long as a really qualified lead. And I can give you the example right now. Let's say your cost for book call is $500, right? Which is pretty pricey. And you book 3 of them and you close one of them because you have a 30% closing rate. Well, you spend $1,500 to make $6,000. So you're within KPI. And especially if you cash collect $3,000 up front, they do a split payment, then you're technically profiting that month $1,500, and next month you get the other $3,000. So that's what I pretty much it all ties in together. That's why you gotta be, you gotta be very, very aware of these numbers, because if you're aware your KPIs, you can do math and see how much you can spend per client. Okay, so write a strong hook with write a strong and direct hook that calls your ideal avatar or your client. Test multiple ad angle variation to find the best. This is something that a lot of clients don't do. They maybe do one ad and then they run with a long time. Like right now, currently we have like 7 different ads running at like $150 a day, and all those 7 ads have brought me book calls and convert and sales. So I have multiple winning creative running at once. Okay, so whenever you have something that's working, right away try different variations of that ad, like as soon as possible. As soon as you get the first sale and a couple book calls, that's your your cue to, okay, I need to create different versions of this ad as close as possible, different variations, maybe change some colors, maybe text the little angle or maybe the hook a little bit, but at least the main body of the ad stays the same. Okay, and again, the goal should be anything above 1%. If you get anything above 1%, you should be solid. And another thing, like I mentioned, most of us always review CTR, also monitor unique CTR weekly and see if that's dipping. If it is, then that is your cue to, okay, I got to create new creative, because the reason why my cost per acquire, my cost per book call is going higher and higher every week is because my CTR is dropping down every week. Okay, so very important to keep in mind, right? Now, the next thing is your cost per lead and cost per 1,000 impressions. Now, this is again the same thing that I was telling you about. If the CTR is going lower and lower and lower, your cost per lead is going to double or triple in some cases, and your cost per 10,000 impression, the same thing will follow. So this is all another, after I look at my CTR, I look at my cost per lead or my cost per result. If you're doing DM, it's cost per result. If you're doing VSL funnel, you go to higher rules and you put cost per lead, it will tell you right there. So, and then after that is my CPN, okay? The CPN should be anywhere between 50 to max 150. I don't want to keep it too difficult. The CPN is how much it cost me to get my ad in front of 10,000 people. So you want to have to be that relatively low, okay? So what is the next thing I look at? I look at what is my opt-in rate, right? So out of all the people that are landing in my funnel, what is the percentages of people opting in? Now, if it's lower than 20%, if it's like a 5% or whatever maybe, that could be because the ad that you have right now is not calling out your ideal avatar. So when they get into the landing page, they don't opt in because it's not really what they want. So if for you to get a 20% opt-in rate or more, you have to call out your ideal avatar, have a CTR of at least like a 1% or plus. So that way, at least 20% could opt in. Now, there's not people who booked calls. There's just people opting in into your funnel. It should be at least at 20%, right? So if it's lower than that, then you know what you got to do. You got to be more direct on your ads, call out your ideal avatar. That will translate to more people opting into your funnel. Now, what's the next after that? Conversion rate. So how many people out of those 100 people, how many people actually booked the call? So the opt-in should be 20%. The conversion should be 1 to 3%. If you're lower than like 1%, then your whole funnel is not working. That's why that cost is dramatically going up every single week or every single month, just because too little people, the people landing in your landing page are booking only 1 or 3%, less than 1%. Because if you're at 1 or 3%, totally fine. Like I'm currently scaling right now, and my conversion rate is like 1.8. So like out of 100 people, barely 2 are booking the call. But at least I'm within KPI, so it doesn't really matter. As long as you're with KPI, keep it there. Just make sure. And how do you find out this information? Well, whatever you're hosting your funnel, like your CRM, for us is Go High Level. It will tell you these KPIs, so you can know what is your opt-in rate and what is your conversion rate. Okay. Now, if another thing to keep in mind, let's say let me just go over this. So like to simplify the funnel can also bring more book calls, because maybe if you have too much restriction, like maybe you have way too many questions in the application, this also could create a lot of resistance to someone to book a call with you. So if you this is almost like a double-edged sword, because if you remove too much questions and if you remove too much friction, then you get a bunch of unqualified leads booking with you. Now, if you have a DM funnel, it is okay because you already kind of pre-qualified them through the DMs. So you don't need to have a lot of restrictions in the landing page. You just send them the link for they could book a call. But if you do have a VSL funnel and people are just booking the call by themselves, it's not really a DM strategy, then yeah, you need to have some sort of restriction, because if you remove every single question of you having an application, this will lower your cost per book call, but it will increase the cost per qualified book call, because too many people opt them in. They're not qualified. So there's a nice balance you got to find of like, okay, I need to only ask the questions that I truly need to know the answer of, and try to remove as much friction as possible. So when people land on your landing page, they watch the VSL and they immediately book a call, and it takes them, no more than a minute or something like that. So this is something to keep in mind, is do I have too much friction in order for somebody to book a call with me? So very simple, but again, this is a double-edged sword. So be careful with, don't remove every single friction that you have in your landing page, because then yes, more calls will be booked, but more unqualified calls will be booked, and we don't really want that. Okay. Now, this is what I was talking about, the targeted audience, that it might be the reasons why you have low opt-in and conversion rates, is that people are landing in your landing page. You have a good CTR, but not everybody's booking. You have like a low opt-in percentage and a low conversion percentage, and it's because you maybe not targeting the right audience. Maybe the audience you are targeting is very, very small. That could be also a possibility. So you always got to be, it's like when you're doing this, you have to find a nice balance, and it's very difficult to find the perfect balance. That's why you got to do a lot of testing to remove friction or add friction. Let's say if you're running a VSL funnel and you remove all the friction, spend $1,000 or $2,000 on that funnel, on that VSL funnel, see what type of booking calls you get. If you see that too many people are not showing up and too many people are unqualified, that means that there is no friction. So add a little bit of friction. And what could be friction? Well, it could be how much are you making per month? And if you're not making enough money, let's say as a business owner, for me to help you get funded, that you don't qualify. That could be one layer of friction. The second could be, what is your personal credit score, which is the biggest one in our industry. If you don't have a good credit score, then you immediately get disqualified because we can get you funded. Now, if you are a credit repair company and you do funding, which is the ideal, brother and sister partnership, then you don't have to have a lot of you don't have to have a lot of qualification, except for if they have the money to pay you or not. So if you are running a credit repair business and a funding business together, and let's say you're running a VSL funnel, then you should have as many people as you need to book a call with you, and as little as friction as possible, because ideally all you want to know is, hey, do you have X amount of funds to invest in your business, or to help you fix your credit score and get you funded. So that's something that you could do too. But ideally, you want to be as detailed as possible when who you're trying to target, so it could bring higher conversions in the opt-in page. But like I said, it's a nice balance between broad and detailed, okay? It should be kind of like a 50-50, and again, just test its funnels and see which one is working out better for you. And another thing to keep in mind, if you feel that you're only going to spend $1,000 into your funnel and everything is going to get fixed, you're horribly wrong. If you're stuck right now at like 30, 50K per month, and the reason is because you keep testing, let's say, new creatives, and you haven't really tested the funnel to fully optimize it, that could be the reason. Maybe you're testing a bunch of creatives, but the funnel is not fully optimized. You got to keep this in mind. You got to see, that's why I was telling you, first we got to see where is the bottleneck. What is keeping my business from growing? What is the actual ceiling of the business? Is it the CTR? Is it the opt-in rate? Is it my closing rate? Is it my cost to acquire a client? Is it my average cash collected? That could be another problem. I see a lot of clients that they have everything ready, their KPIs in order, except for the average cash collected. Instead of cash collecting, let's say $3,000, they're cash collecting maybe 1,500 or 2K or something like that. The worst we've seen is that they cash collect exactly how much it costs them to acquire a client. And this could be very difficult because you don't have a lot of profits to reinvest back into the business and go acquire more clients at a faster rate. So it's like, you first got to find out, okay, where's the bottleneck? Like, from all the KPIs and things that I've been saying in this video, go to your own business and see them. Like, where are my clients falling off? Where is my biggest restriction in the business? Dive into your business, look at your KPIs, and see where's the bottleneck. Once you identify, which is the hardest thing to do, is actually finding out what is the thing that is like holding you back. Once you find that thing, it makes it much easier to fix that problem. So keep very, very oh, actually, I was going to talk about this in the next. So keep this in mind. Depending on what is the bottleneck of the business, it will pretty much dictate where the cost is coming from. Like, very, very simple. Like, which of these let's say the opt-in rate is very, very low. Well, that's the thing costing you to bring costs dramatically up. Now, one thing about the funnel and DMs strategy, okay? Whatever, depending on which funnel you're doing, once have different pros and cons, okay? But let me go into the VSL funnel. If you have a VSL funnel, the best thing to focus on is I think it's like 80% should be the VSL, okay? And maybe you're not, maybe there's so many variables of why the VSL could be not working. It could be you're not being direct. It could be that you're not giving enough testimonials and case studies about the actual product. So people are not, maybe they watch it for like a few, maybe even 10 seconds and click off. So it's very important if you are running a VSL funnel to make sure your VSL is structured correctly. Now, how do you structure a VSL correctly? Well, step one, start with the biggest problem that the client. So they saw your ad, right? They clicked on the ad. They went to go click on the video. Literally immediately explain what the biggest problem in the business is, or why they haven't got it funded, or the credit, whatever the problem is, right away, and then go how to solve it. Like within the first 30 seconds to a minute, you should be talking about how to solve that problem, okay? Then step three, show case studies and past clients. And again, the more results you have, the more proof you can show somebody that you're a company worth trusting, and you can actually get the result that you're talking about, okay? Another step is show before and afters. That's another thing that people miss. Like, hey, after they started working with us, this is what the business looked like. Before, they couldn't even scale. They needed capital, they needed this, they needed all these things, and they couldn't even scale. Once they got the funding, they were able to get X BRBs, they were able to get, whatever, they were able to buy their first investment property, whatever the goal was. Make sure you describe before and after of 2 or 3 clients, for they could see, oh wow, this person actually helped this person not only get funded, but change the entire business, which is what they want to book a call with you for, okay? Then that's when you introduce yourself, why you're credible, highlight what makes you different. It could be your story, it could be your offer. What is the unique part about working with you that differentiates you from everybody else? And then step 7, clear steps of how to work with you, like step by step. Okay, so after they watch the video, tell them step by step what they gotta do, especially if it's a VSL funnel that they had no previous interaction with you, because in the DMs, at least you're talking back and forth. You can tell them, hey, here are the next steps. But it's a VSL funnel, walk them step by step on like what to do next, all right? For DM funnel, in reality, man, it's the setter, man. It's like, there's no way about it. If you're doing your own setting, then like the DM funnel, the MVP player is literally the setter. If you don't have a good setter, you're gonna have a very rough time. Or if you are your own setter, then you know why things are not working, okay? Like, setting is still a sales skills, and if you don't have that skill, it's gonna be very difficult to scale your DM campaigns, okay? So you gotta be on point, man. You gotta be really good. And another thing, if you are hiring a setter, make sure that setter knows exactly how to communicate well, because your prospect, the lead that just DM'd you, they don't know that they're talking to a setter. They think they're talking to you. So if your setter messes up the conversation or the flow of the conversation or whatever it may be, or says something wrong, the lead doesn't think the setter is dumb. They're gonna think you're dumb. They're gonna think, oh, this guy is a fucking idiot. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So I don't want to work with this prospect. So you gotta be, you gotta have a setter that's like, is very well aware of these things, because if they're not, the business is not gonna flow too well, and it's gonna be a mess for everybody, okay? So make sure that your setter is on point. Now, there's another thing that we do too in our program, that we do give you some of our setters. Like we have like a Rolodex, even though they get dried out, really, really quick, because a lot of our clients want to use them. But this is another good aspect of our company, that if you do join us and you want help either training your setter or looking for a good setter, we do help you with that. So if you need help with like scaling your company, or even finding the right setters, or any marketing strategies, you can click the link below, schedule a call with me and my team, and we help you implement all this good stuff that I'm talking about, okay? But again, if you're having a DM funnel, the setter is literally the MVP. If you don't have a good setter, this whole thing is going to fall apart, okay? Now, one key metric that you want to keep in mind is your cost per qualified book call, right? Because if you know your cost, not cost per book call, your cost to qualify book call. Now this is including the people who don't show, the people who don't qualify. Was usually the cost to actually talk to a prospect that is qualified and is actually shown up to this call. Because again, if you know these metrics, it comes down to math. If like I said earlier before, I mean, I gave this example here, but I will give you one that, like I said it before in the call, that like, hey, if your cost per qualified call is $500 and it's pretty expensive, $500, you get me? Okay, you spend $1,500, you're gonna speak to 3, you have a 30% closing rate, you're gonna close one of those guys for $6K. So that's why it's so important knowing your cost per qualified book call, because maybe your cost per call is $200 or $250. But not everybody shows up. Not everybody who actually book call is actually qualified, depending if you're doing DM or VSL. So you should look for your cost to qualified book call, and then start doing math from there. If your cost to qualified book call is, let's say, $1,000, right? And your closing rate is 30%. That means you gotta spend at least $3,000 to close one guy to pay you $3K. And technically there you're breaking even. So that's why if your cost for a qualified book call is like $1,000, you better be at a 50% closing rate, so you can spend at least $2K and somebody pays you $3K, and at least you have $1,000 making profit, and then the $3K next month. If you cash collect the whole entire, if you get a paid in full, hallelujah, more power to you. But this is why you want to understand these metrics, because if you don't understand these KPIs, you can't do math in your business, and math will dictate will predict your business and how much you can spend to acquire these clients, or to actually how much you can spend to book qualified book calls. Okay, so do the math on this on the trackers that when our clients that we work with, they have all these metrics. So if you don't have your tracker, knowing these KPIs is you got to either buy them or join a program, whatever you want to do, but you got to have at least spreadsheets or tracking softwares to know you're qualified for book call, because then that will dictate how much you can actually spend to talk to a qualified prospect. The next one after that is show up rate. So show up rate will also dramatically increase your cost per acquire client, because if you have 50% show up rate, then that's why it's bringing the costs higher. Is because half of the people that you're booking are not showing up. So your cost per, let's say, cost to acquire is double, because half of the people you're booking a call are not showing up. Simple. We all understand these things, but we don't understand how much this is impacting our entire business. That's why when I talk to clients and they're like, I'm like, what's your show up rate? And they don't have an answer to give me. I'm like, well, that's one of the biggest problems right now. We don't even know your KPIs. So if we don't understand how many people are not showing up to these calls, that is directly correlated to what is your cost to book call. Your cost to acquire a client. So very, very important metrics to keep in mind, because you can track, you can measure, and you can control. And if you want to scale your business, you have to be in control of the business. Okay. So what are some things to improve your show up rate? I have videos on this, but I could talk about a little bit on it. Immediately after somebody booking a call with you, you got to call within 5 to 10 minutes tops. Even if it's DM or VSL campaign, as soon as somebody books a call and you get the Slack notification with their personal information, call them, confirm the call. Hey, how's it going? I just saw you booked a call with us. I just want to make sure everything's all right, that you're getting all the material you need, all X, Y, and Z. We have scripts of what to say exactly about this inside our program. But pretty much as soon as you call, as soon as they make the call, as soon as they book the call, you gotta call them and verify the application. One of the things that we want to make sure is that they're watching the VSL, that they actually get the right phone number and email, so we can send them all of information for our company that frequently ask questions, and try to do as much as objection prevention as possible before speaking to us. Okay, the objection prevention method is pretty much giving them all the information they want and need, answer every single question that they have. Like I'm gonna release a video soon here that what I did is I got over 500 calls of my sales calls and my team. I threw them all into a transcript. I got the transcript, then I threw all those transcripts into ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT, hey, what are the top 20, 30 questions I get asked over and over again inside these sales calls, so I can answer them all in one video. And that's exactly what I did. So if you could do that in your marketing and your VSLs and your thank you page, so at least when people come to the call, they're well more equipped. They know exactly, everything about you. They have all their answers pretty much, questions pretty much answered, which make the likelihood of them showing up and actually closing dramatically higher. Okay. So these are things that you have to implement in your business if you want to scale to those 6-figure months, because all of these things are a small percentage adding up to you actually having the right KPIs to scale your business. Because yeah, you can fix one of these things, right? But if the other one is not maximized, then it's also, bringing the threshold down. So you want to make sure all these little things are on point. You want to make sure that your closing rate is 30%. You want to make sure that your average cash on hand is at least 50% of the offer. You want to make sure that your CTR is above 1%. You want to make sure your cost per lead is leveraged, low. You want to make sure your cost per 1,000 impression CPM is low as well. You want to make sure your opt-in rate is a minimum of 18 to 22%, something around there, right? You want your conversion rate to be from 1% to 3%, okay? You want your average cost of book call to be a number that if you do the math, it makes sense, you know, and you want to have your show up rate to be as high as possible. On my VSL funnel, it's almost like a 30 to 20% in some months, so it's averaging to like a 25%. On my DM funnel, it's a 10% no show, so 90% of the people are showing up. So you can do math according to that. So you got to make sure that all these KPIs are in order to scale correctly. And if one of these KPIs is off, or even two, is the reason why your cost and a cost per book call, cost to acquire is going higher and higher and higher every month, because things fall off. You know, maybe your ad was perfect, you know, when you first launched it, and now 3 months down the line, your CTR is going lower and lower and lower and lower. Like your frequency tab in the ad, maybe it's like a 4 or 5. The frequency is pretty much how many times people have seen the same ad. And if you're in a frequency of 5, then your ad has been shown to the same people over and over and over and over again, meaning CTR will drop down because they already seen the ad and didn't really click through it. Your cost per book, well, your opt-in will go down, your conversion will go down, your cost per book call will go down, will go higher, your show up will go, you know, it will just literally translate down until you finally look at your data tracker or whatever you're keeping your KPIs and be like, damn, my cost per book call or my cost to acquire this month is almost tripled. And that's due to all these KPIs that I'm talking about. But that's it for this video. I hope you got some understanding of my mindset of what do I do when I'm thinking about, oh, look, my KPIs this month are totally going out of whack. This is the things that I go through. Okay, which part of the business is pretty much breaking, that is making my costs and my KPIs going higher and higher every month. So look at these metrics, make sure they're up to par. If they are, then you should be ready to scale. You know, if you have at least 10 winning creatives or 5 to 10 winning creative at the right ad budget, you should be touching those 80 to 100K per month, right? You got to make sure that your KPIs are in order. Make sure your cost is now out of whack. Your average cash on hand is at least 50% of the offer. And that's the case, you're ready to scale.